Hello everyone. Sorry I can't see you, and sorry you can't see me. I much prefer to be able to see people, and I quite like doing things like this face to face, but I stepped in sort of at the last minute. And so 2 apologies to start off with. One, I've been suffering with a cold and cough, so I've been off work and haven't done much prep for this, but I'm hoping it'll be, fairly interesting. And please ask questions at the end, and I'll try and answer as many as I can. And yeah, so cold, not if I start coughing, my apologies. I've got a glass of water next to me and I've got a box of tissues as well, so I'm hopefully all prepared. So first slide. So for those who don't know me, I did a talk back in February, I think it was, for Southampton Natural History Society. And some of you might know who I am. I've been working with Lindsay McCulloch, who was the planning ecologist at the council, who is now head of environment and sustainability. So she's been promoted. I've been working at the council about 3.5 years now. It started as a temporary contract and it was made permanent a few months ago, which is great. My background is ecological consultancy, so very much on the protected species side of things, putting reports together to support planning applications, so working on the side of the developers. So work at the council is very, very different. So yeah, I've been working in the world of ecology, biodiversity for probably about 25 years now, but yeah, only been at the council 3.5 years. So right, Mike, are you doing my slides?
No, you're doing your own.
Okay,
that's it.
Hold on, sorry I'm starting again.
Yeah,
from the beginning. Right. Okay, so just an update on our team. So things have changed a little bit since I started, and our team has grown, which is great. We now have a team of 6 rangers in this. So for a city council, that's pretty big team of rangers. They're headed up by a very competent lady called Dawn Bannatyne, who's based at the Hawthorns on the Common. She and another ranger are responsible for the central part of Southampton, so that includes the Common. Then we have 2 rangers for the east, that's Ian Bailey and James Stubbs, and 2 rangers for the west, a new person called Tom and Claire Connolly. So we've now got a team of 6. So their responsibility is to try and get all of our semi-natural green spaces, we don't really have any natural ones, so all our semi-natural green spaces into better condition, favourable condition, if you like. A lot of them are sites of importance for nature conservation, so they'll be focusing their efforts on those and the Common. We have Community Campaigns Officer, Sarah Chersick, who some of you may have met. She takes volunteers out each week, and she also works with Community Payback as well. So she does various volunteer tasks across the whole of the city, looking after our green spaces. Then we have 2 sustainability officers who are charged with trying to make the city, Southampton City Council, net zero by 2030. And also to make the city more adaptable to climate change. Then there's me, that's bullet point 4, ecologist. And then we've also got a budget for a planning ecologist as well. That person is yet to start. We haven't actually started the recruitment process yet, but they will literally be focusing on reviewing planning applications, making sure that developers are doing what they should be doing, and that they are delivering their biodiversity net gain, which became mandatory as part of the Environment Act 2021, which you may or may not have heard of. So that's the team. I'm not going to go over sort of the Southampton City Council's Green City Plan in too much detail. The section that I was brought in to deliver was the natural environment section. Sorry, when it goes quiet, I'm just sipping my water so that I don't cough. So we've got various bits to the Green City Plan, and it's all about trying to make the city a better place for people, for wildlife, sustainable energy and carbon reduction, climate change adapted, cleaner air, better waste and water management, sustainable travel, and then there's the natural environment section, which is the bit that I've been focusing on. So there are two strategies as part of that natural environment section of the Green City Plan. There are two strategies that I've written. They've been out for external consultation and internal consultation. They've done the rounds. It's taken about 2 years to get them adopted, formally adopted by the council, but I got there. They were both adopted in January. So the green infrastructure strategy, that's very much focused on trying to create a green network across the city. Green and blue. When I say green, I'm including water bodies, rivers, streams. It's trying to create a green network, or a green grid, if you like, joining up all of the green and blue spaces, trying to make the city better for people, better for wildlife, getting people out and about in green spaces, obviously, you know, mental well-being, physical well-being. We've got a green grid map. It's a little bit strategic at the moment, shall we say. It's been included in the local plan, so it has actually got some substance. It will carry some weight, but it definitely needs developing. It needs to be much more detailed. We need to produce probably ward level maps that show where the existing gaps are in the green infrastructure. So, for example, where I live in Fremantle, Shirley High Street is completely and utterly lacking in any green infrastructure. So, of course, that would be highlighted on the map as an area that, you know, desperately needs some greening. In order to deliver the strategy, I've had to write a delivery plan, and that is going to be adopted, hopefully, fingers crossed, at the end of this month. And that will detail how we are going to deliver this piece of work, who's going to do what the timescales are, what projects we need to get off the ground, what help we need, whether we need money or not, and if we need money, how we're going to get that money into the council to achieve those targets. So that's the green infrastructure strategy, sort of in a nutshell. Very much, as I say, based on, well, the aims of that are very much sort of making the city better for people, less so wildlife focused. So the other piece of work I've been working on, along with the green infrastructure strategy, is a biodiversity strategy, which will probably be of more interest to members of Southampton Natural History Society. So that's very much focused on improving habitats in the city and improving species populations, and improving sort of improving wildlife in general across the city. So I haven't started working on the delivery plan for this strategy yet, but it'll be in the form of a biodiversity action plan. So all local authorities, sure you know this, all local authorities have got a biodiversity action plan that lists the species and the habitats that they want to focus on within that local planning authority area. Southampton City Council has got a biodiversity action plan, but it's pretty old and it's not very specific. So the one that I'm going to start working on next year will be very, very species habitat focused. I've already had a chat with Phil about this, and Phil's going to be helping, hopefully, fingers crossed, developing this biodiversity action plan to make sure that we've got the right species and the right habitats in there, and that our targets are sort of, they're realistic. We're not setting ourselves unrealistic targets and goals. So next slide. I'll go back to the biodiversity action plan a little bit later, but just a little update on other work I've been doing. So when I started at the council, I realised that there was a need for Wildlife and Countryside Act training. So all of the various teams in the council, I'm still getting my head around who does what. And everyone a lot of people work from home. Some people are out on site all the time. Some people are in different offices. So it's very, very difficult to try and get training sort of across the board for everyone. So I've been going out to the different teams across the city, and with my sort of ecological consultant hat on, I suppose, I have been training all of the relevant members of staff who are involved in any aspect of structures, housing repairs, anyone who is on a mower or strimming or trimming hedges, all of those sorts of staff in the council. I've made sure that they've had wildlife awareness training, and that's going to be updated year on year. Either I will deliver that or the rangers will deliver it. I'm also going to create a mandatory training course as well. So when people start the council, there's certain mandatory training that we have to do, for example, health and safety training. And at the moment, we don't have a wildlife awareness mandatory training course. Well, that's going to change. So we're going to get something implemented. I've got a meeting with our HR person next week about it. So that's really good. So it just means that everyone that starts the council who is working on the ground and they have the potential to accidentally disturb an active bird's nest or accidentally strim a hedgehog, for example, then they've had the training. They know what species are protected and what checks to do and what to do should the worst happen. So it's a really, really good bit of work. I've been quite pleased with that. The other people who've received the training are people in our housing operations teams. So every year there's sort of ad hoc repair work that's done, but also there's planned work that's done. So for example, there's 160 council-owned houses which are planned to be re-roofed, and I wanted to make sure that all of the proper checks are done before the work happens. So nesting birds, roosting bats, for example. And I also wanted to make sure that when they do the re-roofing, that they're putting in as many enhancement measures for wildlife as possible. So all of the pitched roofs that they're going to be working on, they will be providing swift nesting boxes in a lot of those. I can't remember what the percentage was now that we agreed, but they're going to be putting in replacement swift nest boxes, irrespective of whether that house, that particular property, has got nesting swifts in it or not. So that's really good. And then where we can put artificial or replacement roost features for bats in, we're also going to be doing that as well. again, irrespective of whether whether a property supports a roost or not. And the council are doing all of the relevant checks as well to make sure that they know whether bats are using those buildings or not. So that's the training, which is ongoing. In terms of habitat management work that I've been involved in, we've surveyed all of our meadow sites now. So we're continuing to modify the way that we manage a lot of our grasslands. And we've got a mixture of road verge management, permanent meadows, and just normal meadow sites. And we've got an internal mapping system at the council, which at the moment is out of date and can't be relied upon, unfortunately. So when someone goes out with their strimmer or on their mower and they go to maintain a grassland, at the moment, our internal mapping system doesn't have the accurate management needed for that site. Well, all of that is being updated at the moment. So our community campaigns officer, Sarah Chersick, she's a bit of a whiz on QGIS. So she is going through all of our meadow information and making sure that our internal mapping system is up to date. So it will have all of our orchid sites on there. It will have all of our road verge, grasslands, meadows and permanent meadows. And then all of the people who are managing those, who are out on the ground, will know when to manage those grassland sites and how. We're continuing to do lots of invasive, non-native removal work as well. Again, Sarah Chersick's been focusing on this, and now our rangers will be working on it as well. Removing things like rhododendron, cherry laurel, Japanese knotweed, and all of that will be mapped as well on our internal mapping system so that we've got a record of where we've done the treatment and monitoring it to see whether it's responded or not and what follow-up actions needed. Sorry, I'm just sipping my water. And then, oh yes, the bottom right photo, those two of our rangers who are removing sticklebacks in the boating lake at Southampton Common. So every year in the winter, once the great crested newts have vacated the boating lake, it gets drained down and all of the sticklebacks are removed by hand. So yes, that's done sort of in the winter time. And then we're also trying to get Green Flag awards for all of our formal parks, but also for all of our semi-natural spaces as well. So in my green infrastructure strategy, I've said that all of our greenways will be put in for Green Flag management. And it just means that they will all have their own management plan and they will be managed to the Green Flag standard. I like this slide with all of these little photos. So this slide, I think most of these slides actually I used in the February 2024 talk that I did to the society. So sorry if you've seen all of these before. So in terms of species focused work that I've been doing, I haven't had a huge amount of time to do much this year, but there will definitely be more of a focus on collecting species data and updating the biodiversity action plan next year. So my focus so far has been on the green infrastructure strategy, which has created quite a lot of work. So the biodiversity action plan is on my radar for next year. That'll be my focus. But this year we've updated our great crested newt surveys on the common. I'm rewriting the management plan for the common, for the SSSI area of the common anyway. And as part of that, we need to know how our great-crested newt population is faring, because that's one of the reasons why the common is designated as a SSSI. And Natural England did a survey in 2023 which suggested that the GCN population was in unfavourable and declining status, which is not great, obviously. So we've updated the surveys in 2024. That was me and the rangers, and some volunteers have done those. And then we're going to update them probably on an annual basis to see how the population's faring, whether the numbers are increasing, whether they're actually using the boating lake for breeding or not. And also, when they come out of the boating lake, which direction are they actually heading in? Because the understanding is that they're using the drainage ditches to move around into their sort of hibernation habitat. So we're going to be doing more work trying to find out how the population's faring. I set up a dormouse, national dormouse monitoring site in the north of the city, at one of our woodlands, which adjoins Southampton Crematorium. So I have done one visit. I did a couple of visits last year, didn't find any dormice, and I've done one in May this year, and I'm doing another one tomorrow. And I found an adult dormouse in one of the boxes, which was brilliant, really good. Phil, I've submitted my record to People's Trust for Endangered Species, so that record will end up at HBIC, just in case you were wondering. We've been continuing as part of our sort of hedgehog-focused work. I've been continuing to give out hedgehog nest boxes mainly to schools, because we're trying to get all of the schools in Southampton to become eco schools. Or if they can't afford to do that, they haven't got the resources, then at least become as biodiverse as possible. So that's another bit of work that I'm doing. I've been continuing to do my bat caring for Hampshire Bat Group. I'm a committee member on with Hampshire Bat Group. We've got our meeting on Wednesday actually this week. So I think the idea is that we're going to try and set up some sort of bat box project across the city. So we're going to have a talk about that. I think that's probably about it actually in terms of species. Oh, and our rangers have been doing butterfly transects as well, and the idea will be to set up more of those across the city. So when I sort of suggested to Mike what I was going to talk about this evening, he suggested that it would be a good idea to let people know how they might be able to get involved. Other work that's happening in the city, what I haven't mentioned is that Southampton, the city's aiming to be a national park city by 2025, I think it is. And there's an opportunity for people to get involved in volunteering, helping the city to become a national park city. There's a lady called Ray Turpin who is leading on that, but the council are working with her to try and sort of reach that target. We're always trying to set new friends groups up. That's the rangers who are much more sort of community engaging. They're helping existing friends groups get money in to improve their local green spaces, but we're also trying to help people to form new friends groups as well, so that we've got people who are looking after their local green space. Obviously spreading the word, spreading your passion and your enthusiasm, trying to get other people passionate about the natural environment, doing stuff at a local level, whether it be, having a wildlife pond, planting pollinator friendly species in your garden, putting up a swift box, having a hedgehog nest box, all of those sorts of things which I'm sure that you're all aware of, well aware of enhancements that you can make at a local level. It all adds up, and I think if everyone in the city just did one little thing, then it would make a massive difference. So I think spreading the word, doing whatever you possibly can at a local level would be amazing. Ad hoc, in terms of sort of records, obviously when I come to update the Biodiversity Action Plan, I can apply to, well, I will be applying to Hampshire County Council, HBIC, the Hampshire Biodiversity Information Centre, who hold all of the sort of species records for the whole of the county. I will be able to get all of those existing records. Phil has very kindly provided me with a lot of records already. Me and the ranger team are also recording any sightings of species that we see when we're out and about. But all of those records they're a little bit sort of ad hoc, and we're using iRecord because I think HBIC, that's their preferred recording platform. But as I say, they're quite ad hoc. So when I come to update the Biodiversity Action Plan, I think that the call for help will be that I need to set up systematic, repeatable surveys in line with best practice guidance, and surveys that don't rely on survey materials being put out. So, for example, we can't do things like reptile surveys, or not very easily anyway, because normally for a reptile survey you would use refugia like roofing felt, for example, or corrugated metal, which attracts heat, and then the animals generally bask either underneath it or on top of it, and then you check those refugia on a systematic basis, and a minimum number of times between when, the months when reptiles are active. But we're not going to be able to do that in the city, because obviously a lot of our space is publicly accessible, and people will they'll probably just nick off with the survey material. So they're going to have to be surveys that we don't need survey materials for. So I'm thinking the sorts of surveys that we're probably going to require help on are things like breeding bird surveys, bat transects, butterfly transects, recording frog spawn in water bodies. So it'll be things like that. It'll be observational. And what I haven't given much thought to this yet, because it's not a piece of work that I've actually started on in earnest. But I think if I think about the surveys that are going to be needed and the help that I'll need, and I'll definitely need help, because I can't, I'm not going to be able to do all of these surveys myself. The rangers will be able to help, but there's a lot of ground to cover, the whole of the city. If I put a sort of a form together asking for people's contact details, maybe what geographical area they're interested in surveying, and what areas of interest or expertise they've got. And then I can share that form with Southampton Natural History Society and see what members want to get involved in surveys it'll be next year. And if they know any other people that want to join in the surveys as well. So I think that's probably a really good opportunity that people will have to get directly involved in getting species data together for this updated Biodiversity Action Plan. If people don't know what a Biodiversity Action Plan looks like, if you have a look on Winchester City Council's website and have a look at their Biodiversity Action Plan, I'm planning on Southampton's BAP sort of following a similar format. It's really, really clear, and it lists all of the different species that the council are going to focus on and the habitats. So yeah, if you're interested and you don't know what a BAP looks like at the moment, then I think, if you have a look at the Winchester example, it's a really good one. I think that is probably it. Just some nice pictures to finish with. And yeah, open for questions. And Mike, maybe people can see my face as well, and they can see me sipping my water and blowing my nose.
Well, if they can, that'd be great. I can't at the moment.
Okay, I'm sorry that I keep sipping my water, but I
If you,
think talking is making me cough.
that's all right. Don't worry. If you can stop sharing the screen, that'd be great.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
Right. Okay.
hopefully you should be able to see all the lovely people. Although those that
Oh, I can see you.
yeah. If you in the top right of your screen, there'll be a little view thing where you can select what sort of view you want to see, and you can have a view of everyone.
Ah,
So it's wonderful to see so many people interested in the city council's green city plan.
yeah, that's great. I can see everyone, but unfortunately, I don't think you can see me, can you?
We
Oh,
can't. That delight
ah,
will have to be saved for another day.
I'm sorry about that.
Don't
Oh,
worry, don't worry. Technology is sometimes sent to try us.
I
I'm
saw you just now, Sam.
oh, did you?
Hmm. Oh, in fact, I can see you now.
oh,
Can you? Oh,
You're only
brilliant.
little, but I can see
I
you.
can't see me.
neither can I.
Ah, and yeah, I'm getting messages. Some people can see me. Brilliant.
Excellent.
Okay.
Well, that's brilliant. I'm very pleased that other people can see you. If people want to, there is something in the chat. I think the
Oh, yes, I
oh, it's
am under a different name. I'm under SCSPPSM2. It's really, really catchy. That's my login name for the council.
there we go.
Oh,
That's why we were having problems earlier, Sam. Is because I couldn't see you logging in, and you were logging in under a pseudonym as a.
sorry. Very catchy. SCSPPSM2. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's not worry about that now. Let's worry instead about questions.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, 3 dozen people on the call at the moment, so that's great. If people are thinking of questions, you probably the easiest way to do it is I can see everyone's names, on images or their names. If you want to use your hand, there's a reaction button at the bottom of your screen, and if you click on that, it's shaped like a heart. If you click on that, there's a raise hand thing. And I've just done that. You see a little hand popped up on my screen, and that'll show me who's trying to ask a question. Then hopefully, and if that doesn't work, then just unmute yourself and shout. That'd be another way of doing it. But I'm going to kick off with a question, as usual, and ask Sam, how are you going to decide which are the species that you want to systematically monitor, be they plants or animals or insects?
Okay. So the starting point, as I say, Mike, I haven't had the time to spend too much time thinking about Southampton's updated map, but I will definitely start thinking about it in earnest in probably December or January. The way that it will be decided what species of flora, fauna, and what habitats we focus on will partly be determined by the desk study data that I get back from HBIC. I'll also have a look at the old biodiversity action plan and what species and habitats were focused on in that, although admittedly it is a little bit vague and is quite old now, but it will be a good starting point. And chatting with the likes of Phil, and there's a guy called John Poland who I've been chatting with and will continue to talk to, John Buckley. I'm going to call on as many sort of people with really good local knowledge about Southampton's biodiversity as much as I possibly can, because I'm going to need help with this. And I need to make sure that I include the relevant species and I don't miss anything out. And obviously I haven't lived in Southampton all my life. I've only lived here 20 years, and I've only been working at the council for 3.5. So I think it'll be a case of reviewing existing information and talking to the right people. And then once I've got a list of the habitats and species, I'll probably consult. If I need to consult externally, I might need to do that. I'll have to check what the process is in the council, but to get people's feedback as well. But I think, yeah, talking to the right sort of, local experts.
Okay, thanks. We've got Claudia and then Ian. Claudia.
Hello there, good evening, great to see everyone. Sam, thank you very much for the presentation. It sounds like you've been and you are working really, really hard. So thank you for that. As a community media sort of journalist, I'm to a certain extent, I'm disappointed that the plans that you are talking about are so out of date. However, at least I'm reassured that they are being updated now. My questions are, I've got two questions. The first one, how regularly will you update on the issues you've discussed and the plans you've got? And secondly, whether the money for the management of the greenways has already been allocated or is yet to be found.
Okay, let me answer the second one first then. So in terms of funding, so we've got our team of 6 rangers in place now. They are all paid for, they're all kitted up. They've got there's money in the budget for them to get various machine tickets that they haven't got already. So that is a massive resource. And as I said before, I don't know whether there's many city councils that have got a team of 6 rangers to just literally focus on managing semi-natural habitats in the city, which is brilliant. So that's work in progress. Any extra money that's needed for maybe new types of machinery, hopefully we've got the money for that. But if we haven't, there are various funding pots that the council will have to go for. So obviously the council's short of cash, as all councils are, and they've had to make, spending cuts here, there, and everywhere. But there are funding pots that we can tap into, which we have done and will continue to do that. So in terms of the money to manage those semi-natural spaces, it shouldn't be too costly, because, as I say, we've got having that team of 6 in place. That's the biggest expenditure. And then in terms of your other question about how often will those documents be updated, did you mean those 2 strategies, the green infrastructure strategy and the biodiversity strategy, or the
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the strategies themselves, I don't know whether there's a sort of a time frame where they have to be revisited and they have to be updated. I'll have to ask Lindsay, my colleagues, about that. Being fairly new to the council, I don't know whether they will have to be updated, and if so, how regularly. But certainly the sort of delivery plans, so the way that they're going to be implemented, who's going to do what, how much it's going to cost, what the projects are, etc., those will be reviewed continually. I mean, I'm updating the delivery plan for the green infrastructure strategy almost daily, because I think of new things that need to be added to it. But that's going to be formally adopted, hopefully, fingers crossed, the end of this month. And then I suppose that will be like, version 1, if you like. And then perhaps every 2 or 3 years it will be revisited and then updated, and it'll be a different version.
Of
and
course.
we'll, so that we can monitor how we're actually progressing with those actions. So it's not just another document that sits on the shelf, which I really, really, want to make sure that that's not the case.
Sure. I think to be specific, what I meant, Sam, is how often will you talk publicly about the progress? Because obviously we already...
I see. So I think that those two strategies which were adopted in January, they're publicly available on the website, and we did consult with the public on both of those.
Yeah.
With the delivery plans, once come the end of this month, that the delivery plan for the green infrastructure strategy will be posted on the council website and will be available for people to see, so that the council can be held accountable, really. You know, we've got a list of things that we want to do, and quite rightly, people need to know how are we actually progressing with that. So I think that document will be published on the website, and then the biodiversity action plan will also be published on the website as well. It'll be a publicly available document to view.
Thank you.
Thanks, Claudia. Thanks, Sam. Ian.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for a great talk and suffering through it with your cough.
Sorry.
I also had two questions. I hope that's okay. The first was, you mentioned about newts and them migrating away from the boating lake on the common.
Yes.
One thing we've noticed walking on the common is every springtime there's always a newt massacre on the Belmore Road path that kind of runs just north of the boating lake, I assume because of bicycle collisions and pedestrian collisions, as well as kind of looking at the animals themselves. Will there be an education element, you know, maybe some newt crossing signs or something like that that can be added to the common to help the humans not damage the newts at the
yeah, no,
yeah.
good question. We'll have to have a think about that then. So you're saying that you've seen them. Can I just have a look? I'm just going to have a look at I'm just going to bring up a map of Southampton Common so that I can just make sure I've got it correct in my head where you're talking about. So there's the boating lake.
Yeah, and then just to the north of it, there's a path that runs west to east from Belmore Road over to the university.
Yes,
and there's always a lot of newt deaths there every spring.
Okay. Is that on so you know that main cycle path that it basically goes from the avenue over towards the Belmore Tavern, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Have you seen newts on both sides of that pathway? So you know where
it's always to the west of is it Coronation Avenue that runs north south?
It is Coronation Avenue, yeah. So it's to the west of there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I assume they're kind of coming from the boggy areas near the ornamental lake, and going over towards the boating lake. And then my second question, kind of similar to educating humans. When we've got the biodiversity action plan and it's targeting specific species, like obviously gardens provide an awful lot of green space in Southampton, and I'd certainly be really interested to know what I could do to help those target species if there's a specific species that we're trying to help in Southampton. So will kind of educating people what they can do with their gardens be part of the action plan?
It will. Yes, it will, definitely. So just going back to the Winchester City Council BAP example, which I think is a really nice one, and it's a recent one. They've got a section in there about how the public, what people can do at a local level. And so I'm really keen that we have something like that as well. And also that we use social media more, because I think the council could definitely, you know, our website could be better in terms of informing people about how they can help at a local level. So we'll use our website, but also social media as well. So I'd like for us to try and promote things as much as we possibly can. I think there's definitely room for improvement for that at the moment. So yes, it will form part of the biodiversity action plan.
Right. Couple of comments from the chat. One, John Poland, who you mentioned earlier, is also saying that he's seen squashed great crested newts
on that cycle route. Yeah, on the cycle route.
And Zoe's asking whether there's any plans to deal with introduced species. And she says this as someone who loves the parakeets, muntjacs, and squirrels.
Okay.
So please don't hurt them. But is there any plans to reduce their numbers? And the other question is, she says in the summer she's offering around 20 barbecues a day on the common, most of them damaging grass.
I know. I know.
And so perhaps that's another bit of educating humans that needs to be
absolutely. I mean, if it were down to me, I would say that barbecues are not allowed on the common, and I have suggested that to the powers that be within the council. But unfortunately, I have been met with we can't do that. I would say no fires and no barbecues. It's a triple SI, and I can't think that there are many triple SIs in England where you are allowed to have fires and barbecues. So with Dawn, the lead ranger, has started spreading the word in terms of leaflets, posters, getting the word out at the local university, that barbecues and bonfires are, bonfires are not allowed, but unfortunately there's no one to police the fact that people are having them. And that barbecues, if you're going to have a barbecue, it should be raised off the ground. There has also been talk about having a barbecue area that people go to. So I'm updating the triple SI management plan for the common at the moment. And I could ask the question of Natural England whether there is any way that we can say categorically no barbecues on the common. As I say, I've been met with a bit of reluctance, shall we say, at the council, not for the want of trying. Sorry, and then parakeets, grey squirrels, and muntjac. There's no plans at all to eradicate any of them at the moment. Okay. But we are working on trying to eradicate invasive non-native species of plants. But yeah, not all of them. We haven't got the time, but but certainly things like cherry laurel, which is taken over most of our greenways, and skunk cabbage and Himalayan balsam, and I think Sarah Chesick goes out weekly doing Himalayan balsam pulling.
Okay, we've got Jill, and then a couple of questions in the chat, but Jill first.
Oh, hi, Jill Doubleday.
Hello. Hi, Sam. Thank you for the talk.
That's all right. Nice to see you.
I don't know if you mentioned Wilder Southampton at all. I had to go and feed the cat at one point. I missed it.
Okay.
But I did want to say, you can look at the Winchester website you mentioned. Don't forget, we have a lot of wildlife gardening advice on the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust.
Sorry, yes, you do, Jill. Yeah.
So you can link to that. Yeah. So for people who don't know me, I was funded by Southampton City Council for 2 years to work on the Wilder Southampton project. Our funding just ran out at the end of August, but we do have more funding. So I am continuing to work on projects. And when Ian mentioned the gardens, I was thinking about that as well. And my question specifically, well, there's two questions. One question, they're kind of linked. And you may have mentioned weeds, I should say. I don't know if you've mentioned this in terms of the council training. I think that was the bit I missed, the council ops training. And linked to that, all of these linked parts, like where I live, there's lots of alleyways around the back of houses with fantastic little hedgehog corridors that hedgehogs can go along and find insects in. I don't know whether you're kind of including these kinds of things in your mapping, and particularly I'd like to know about the weed killer usage.
Okay, I think in terms of those, like, sort of those really important green corridors for wildlife, for example, hedgehogs, I've got one at the back of my garden, and they are great little areas for wildlife. Those will all be included in this green grid mapping, Jill, which I'm hoping that we're going to get some funding for. Got a meeting this week actually about putting a bid together, well, an expression of interest anyway, to try and develop this green grid map for Southampton a bit more. And those little sort of green bits at the end of people's gardens that are quite common in Southampton would be included in that green grid mapping. Then also the important habitats like that will also be included in the biodiversity action plan. Again, because I haven't had time to give it that much thought, I don't know how I'm going to include that, but that they do need to be included in the BAP. In terms of weeds, are you talking about pesticides?
Yeah, you know, when you see, well, very recently, a couple of
Jill,
months
I can't
ago,
hear you.
Sorry, I've unmuted myself. Can you hear me now?
You're a
I
bit
can't
faint.
hear you.
You're a bit faint.
That's very strange. The microphone. Can you hear me now?
That's better.
Still, is it just me or?
I don't know.
Mike, can you hear Jill?
I can, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
I can't hear anyone now.
Oh dear. Never mind. Well, if I don't speak, you won't be able to hear me, but I don't want to just keep talking. It's very interesting for other people.
I'm sorry.
So let's put a message in the chat to Sam. I don't know. What's she?
Mike, I think I've got
Claudia.
a technical problem. I can't hear anyone. I'm assuming that you can all hear me, but
yep.
I've tried muting and unmuting. That hasn't worked.
Audio button at the bottom left of your screen. Oh, you probably can't hear me say that.
Mike, I can't. I'm really
No,
sorry.
Mike, that's why I've
hear.
put something in the chat.
If you
but
send
I can't
me
make her
everyone's
see it.
questions and any comments, I'll make sure that I get back to people.
Yeah.
Come on.
Technology has not been kind to us today, but yes, all the chat questions are saved. So I've been sent the location of where the grid, the newts have been coming to grief and so on and so forth. So all that will be forwarded on to Sam, as well as any outstanding questions. And I'll make sure that answers to those are circulated to the group. I get a list of everyone who's participated. So there will be one or two other questions. The question that I wanted to end with, which I'll put in the chat to Sam as well, is what will be the measures of success? How will we know what the City Council is doing is having any success in terms of its biodiversity action plan in particular? But that'll be the main thing. So, Sam, I'm going to have to say thank you very much from everyone for your contributions today. I'll type this into Sam in a minute. So thanks very much for the contribution. Thanks for everyone's participation with the questions. In terms of records, can I just remind people that we use iRecord is our preferred method of recording stuff for the Natural History Society.
I can hear you.
Oh, good. Excellent.
You've literally just come back out. Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I was just actually beginning to wind up, Sam, and I was saying to people that we use iRecord as our record keeping sort of choice. Phil then adds his expertise to it to analyze the stuff that goes on to iRecord, because obviously it's not just City Council, Southampton Natural History Society members who are putting stuff on. And I just had a quick look. Currently, there's just over 3,300 species recorded on iRecord for the City Council area, contributed by just over 1,300 recorders. So there's already an extensive network of people contributing to the data. But I think what Sam has said about having target species that are analysed in a systematic way will add to the quality of that data, because it's not just
and also, Mike, it will mean that we can monitor things as well. So all of the habitat management work that the rangers are doing, for example, we need to know whether that's actually, you know, being beneficial or not, and you know what. So I think in terms of setting up systematic surveys that we can repeat year on year, it will, you know, using sort of indicator species, if you like, to sort of reflect how healthy those habitats are. For example, bat transits, we can just monitor that year on year, and then hopefully we'll see, you know, an improvement over time.
Yeah.
Whereas you can't do that with ad hoc records.
And that sort of leads to a final question from the chat area, really, just for this section. As I say, there are one or two other questions in there, which I'll forward on to you that we'll get.
Okay, brilliant, thank you.
But one other question is, we've been talking about how members of the Natural History Society can help, but Paul has asked about, what about, you know, other groups, faith groups, community groups, and indeed the business and private sector in the city.
Absolutely. Every single landowner, every single person that comes into the city that's a pupil or a business person or you know, places of worship, if everyone can do one thing, or, you know, as a minimum, it will make a massive difference. And I'm all for collaborative working and getting people to come together for, you know, for the greater good. I think everyone's got to be involved in this. Can't just be, you know, I don't know, residents or just people in the council. And also I want to use we've got an internal communications platform at the council, which we're not making use of at the moment, in terms of getting people in the council, you know, motivated and enthused and doing their bit. So we're going to do that as well. There's lots and lots of work to do. But yeah, everyone.
I think one last question then, and then we've probably got through pretty much all of them in the chat as well, which is from Mark, is asking what potential there is within the city area to tap into biodiversity net gain money from development within the city.
Good question. So at the moment, developers can, ideally, they're supposed to provide their biodiversity net gain, their 10% BNG, as it's called, ideally on the site within the red line boundary of the development. If that's not possible, then nearby, and, you know, ideally within the local planning authority boundary. If that's not possible, then they can provide it outside of the boundary, or they can buy credits from anywhere in theory. So they could buy credits for Kent rather than Southampton. So Lindsay McCulloch, who is the planning ecologist, is working on BNG to keep it within the city. And we're working on some a credit system. She hasn't spent a huge amount of time on that because she's been very, very busy with other stuff, but that is definitely on her radar. We want to try and keep all of this 10% BNG within Southampton, and we don't want it to go outside of the city boundary. So that's, yeah, it's a case of watch this space, but
okay, Sam.
Sorry, does that answer that question?
Yes, I'm going to say.
Okay.
Sam, thanks ever so much for that. We've been talking about species biodiversity, and, you know, there was a question about invasive species. Just a reminder for everyone to keep their eyes peeled for yellow-legged hornet, Asian hornet.
Yes.
Commonly known. There have been 2 sightings to my knowledge in the city, one of which was a nest of some 3,000 individuals, which was found on the common and destroyed. Another sighting of I think just a few individuals in the Shirley area, but something to keep your eye open for. If you look for, just Google Asian hornet or yellow-legged hornet, you will find a map of where it's being sighted at the moment across the country, and you'll find illustrations to help you identify it. As the name that is now being commonly used for it, yellow-legged hornet, suggests, it's a hornet with yellow legs. It's pretty blooming unmistakable. But do have a look out for that, and make sure that any sightings, if you can get a photograph, the better. But do report them. There's a link on the national site of how you can report sightings quickly and speedily. And then the final thing is just to remind you for next month, a meeting about Keyhaven and Pennington with Pete Donnell, the warden down there, which again will be covering a whole range of biodiversity subjects, but outside of the city rather than inside it. So for the time being, Sam, once again, thanks very much for your help and support. We'll see what we can do to help and support you over the coming months and years. And thank you everyone for joining, and hopefully see you again in a month's time.